Hi, friends. If you've seen RMN's new strategic plan for 2025 through 2028, you know that the three of us, who used to be the organizing team, now have new titles and different roles. But given our years of experience supporting churches and groups engaged in the reconciling process, we got the team back together to share a brief overview of our recommended steps, as well as some great tips we've learned along the way.
Hello, everyone. I am Izzy Alvaran. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a United Methodist clergy appointed to serve as RMN's Director of United Methodist Connections.
Hi everyone, my name's Helen Ride and my pronouns are they, them, theirs. I'm a home missioner appointed to RMN as the Director of Mission Impact, and I'm coming to you today from North Carolina.
Hi, all. I'm Laura Young. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a deaconess appointed to RMN and serving as the Director of Congregational Engagement. My primary focus is working alongside Reconciling Ministries, as well as supporting those interested in becoming a reconciling ministry. That means we'll be working together regularly. We want to keep this video as brief as possible, so we're going to move pretty quickly. Here we go. When RMN talks about our overarching work, we divide it into three parts: changing hearts and minds, changing policy, and changing practice. Reconciling ministries, whether entire congregations or smaller groups, play a huge role in all three of the ways we're working to create change. The overall effectiveness of the reconciling movement counts on the critical, on the ground witness and advocacy of our local reconciling ministries. This is a partnership, RMN staff and each of our reconciling ministries together. There are many reasons to become a reconciling ministry. And post General Conference, or GC, we have a new reason. As you know, we achieved several major milestones at GC. But here's the thing. When something that important takes place during a quick 2-week period with what looks like little resistance, it can be deceiving. What happened in those 2 weeks wasn't quick, it wasn't easy, and it wasn't simply the result of disaffiliations, though they played a role. It was the fruit of hard and purposeful work by hundreds of people for over 50 years. We're proud of the work and deeply grateful for the outcome. It's a big deal. And it's important to remember that this huge achievement was only a milestone. General Conference lifted policies that mandated discrimination. Unfortunately, the option to discriminate is still available. Until more hearts and minds are changed, LGBTQ plus United Methodists are only as safe and included as their particular location allows. I know you get it. Across the denomination, local churches, districts, and conferences are quite different. There are varying levels of safety throughout our connection. But y'all, safety and inclusion shouldn't be dependent on our zip code. That's not who we're called to be, and so our work continues. As a reconciling ministry, your witness and advocacy will make a big difference, and not only for your church and immediate neighbors, but across the UMC at large. Some of you may be fortunate enough to already live and serve in an inclusive annual conference. Your willingness to join us and help create changes that lead to inclusion for everyone, everywhere, that's a selfless gift to fellow United Methodists who may not be in a safe space yet. The changes still needed won't happen on their own. Reconciling Ministries model what we're working to become in every zip code throughout the denomination.
So, when it comes to considering affiliating with Reconciling Ministries Network, we have 4 ways in which small groups, churches, campus ministries, and regional groups can do that. Firstly, an entire congregation can go through the discernment process and affiliate as a reconciling church, and that is a whole church, whole congregation process. Another option is for a small group to become a reconciling community. So that might be a Sunday school class, a Bible study group, a youth group, a choir, a United Women in Faith circle, or a United Methodist men's group. Any small group within a congregation can become a reconciling community. We also have Reconciling Campus Ministries, and these are campus ministries that have voted to affiliate with RMN. Finally, we have regional reconciling communities, and that is when individual reconciling United Methodists from a particular geographic location gather together. They might be from multiple different churches, but they gather together as individual reconciling United Methodists with a desire to create a reconciling presence within a specific geographic location. They would become a regional reconciling community that is not attached to a specific church, but is attached to a specific area.
The first step in the reconciling process is to gather a group of people who share your passion for the full inclusion and affirmation of LGBTQ plus people in the life of your congregation and of our denomination. These people will form your core team and will work together to advocate for, design, and shepherd the reconciling process to its completion. Your core team should be led by a layperson. Be sure to include your pastor whenever possible, but in a supportive role, not as the one driving the process. In our polity, clergy come and go, so this process is designed to be lay-led. Clergy can maximize their role through preaching and Bible study. Make every effort to build a diverse core team to model inclusion in the team's leadership. Consider representation from various demographics in your congregation, especially including LGBTQ plus persons if possible.
The Building an Inclusive Church Toolkit, you'll hear us call this the BIC Toolkit, is a great ecumenical resource that was co-designed by folks at RMN and sibling organizations in several denominations. It's a step-by-step guide to our recommended process of discernment that hopefully leads to your church or community becoming a reconciling ministry. The process is rooted in relationship building, and this is a healthy, holy process that shouldn't be rushed or taken lightly. It's available to download online, and like many of the resources we'll talk about today, you can find it on the RMN website. Now, just a quick note. If you're a Sunday school class or other small group and you've already had conversation about LGBTQ plus justice and you're mostly on the same page, you may not need every single step in the toolkit, and you might modify the steps that you do decide to use. Your process might move pretty quickly. For larger groups and congregations, say if you're a 250 member church, for example, that has not studied LGBTQ plus justice, has different levels of knowledge and differing points of view, you will want to use each step of the toolkit and take your time. Completing the process quickly is not the goal. Being thoughtful and thorough is much more important. The toolkit is quite helpful, and we encourage you to draw from it.
When we talk about the discernment process, whether as a whole congregation or as a small group, there is one thing that is critically important and that we emphasize whenever we speak about this process. How we do what we do is every bit as important as what we do. If our process to discern whether to become a reconciling congregation or group does not reflect the values that we seek to espouse in the statement that we're going to adopt, then we're doing this all wrong. There are three things that are really important in this process. The first is the whole idea of graceful engagement. This means that we consider how we're reaching out and engaging folks in conversation about the process. We need to do this in a way that invites people in, constantly invites people in. Another way to talk about this is relational organizing. When this process is done, especially when it's the entire congregation going through it, we have to remember that this is not people who don't know each other seeking to reach a common goal. We are talking about and working with people who are already deeply engaged and in relationship with one another. Sometimes friendships and connections going back generations and decades. So the relational component of our organizing is just critically important, and we need to value that extremely highly. The final thing to think about is how we do our organizing in terms of the values of intersectionality. This is a key component of RMN's foundational reconciling statement. At RMN, we are committed to an intersectional approach to justice and inclusion. This is essential and required. Throughout your study and conversation during discernment, we really encourage you to consider commitment to advocacy for the many people groups who, in spite of equal rights outlined in the Book of Discipline, continue to experience oppression within the United Methodist Church. If we aren't doing this work completely intersectionally, then we really aren't doing the work properly, and we aren't living up to our values. In 2020, we adopted a new foundational required statement that includes intersectional language. This is the language shown here on the screen for you to see. RMN is continually working to live into our values, which is why we move beyond encouraging intersectional language in reconciling statements and made it part of our foundational required statement. You are welcome to say more than what we have in this foundational statement by adding language to the beginning or the end of the statement. But a vote to embrace and adopt this statement as written is a foundational requirement for affiliating with RMN.
Conversation and building relationships rooted in graceful engagement is a key value of the reconciling process, just as Helen said. It is vital that your core team is ready to share your heartfelt personal stories of why LGBTQ plus inclusion is important to you. These meaningful conversations should happen ideally through one-to-one chats and in small groups with church leadership and clergy. In these conversations, you are able to share your story, learn what pew neighbors think and feel, and how they reach their points of view on the matter of LGBTQ plus affirmation. These are holy moments, and spending time visiting and praying together is encouraged. These conversations will continue throughout the reconciling process as you invite members to events and study opportunities. Invite them to volunteer for various roles along the way. Engage them in sharing their views related to the process. Make it a goal to reach out to every member of your church or group. Conversations with all members, especially those who have different opinions or opposing views, is integral to a healthy reconciling process. Honest and intentional conversations strengthen relationships and build trust. Resist the temptation to postpone these conversations, as visiting about our differences earlier in the process is always better. Laura can explain a little more about this.
Thanks, Izzy. I think this is really important. 85% of people will accept a decision they did not vote for if they feel they were invited into the conversation and truly heard. This statistic was actually shared with me in a different setting, but I think it's transferable in most cases, and I've certainly witnessed it in a number of churches. Relationship building and genuine conversation make all the difference. We want everyone to feel included and that their perspective matters. 85% of people will accept a decision they did not vote for if they feel they were invited into the conversation and truly heard. Using the toolkit and what you've learned here today, your reconciling team will want to custom design a process for study and group discussion. Remember that specific study resources are available on the RMN website. You'll also want to take full advantage of what you learn from your one-to-one conversations with church members when you're considering what type of study and discussion options to offer. Sometimes these opportunities include learning new information from scratch, and sometimes we need to unlearn misinformation that we've picked up along the way. And we all learn in different ways. Some prefer books, some prefer video-based learning, some enjoy in-person lectures or panel presentations, and so forth. We recommend offering a variety of formats so that there is always something for everyone. You'll want to offer some events during the day, some in the evening, some on the weeknights, some on the weekends. You get the picture. And consider schedules of your youth and young adults when planning these events. We definitely want them to be able to participate and always offer childcare. Your time together for study and education, along with the individual conversations with church members. This is the longest part of the process. It's going to continue throughout. And again, when needed, a longer process isn't a bad thing. Being thoughtful and thorough is the highest value.
As you're putting together your education plan, here are some things to consider. First, make sure you undergird the entire process in prayer. Setting up specific prayer groups to pray for the process is a great idea. Storytelling is really central to the discernment process. Helping people learn how to tell their stories and then providing a place for those stories to be told can really give folks an extra boost of courage and bravery. And those stories, let's not forget, can change hearts and minds. One on one meetings, individual conversations with members of the congregational group should be an essential part of your discernment process, and they're an excellent place to tell our stories. You'll also want to do some Bible study. Many people have different perspectives on what the Bible says about LGBTQ plus people, so incorporating Bible study into your education plan is really important. Several groups and churches have used expert panel presentations that could be a follow up to a film or a documentary screening. Another option would be a question and answer session at the end of a film or documentary. Dialogue and discussion groups are helpful too. These might be centered around a specific topic or maybe a book. Adding any other continuing education events would add opportunities for folks to engage in education and learning. The index card idea is also great, and Laura is going to explain a little bit more about that.
First, here's my disclaimer. This is the one time I think it can be helpful to accept anonymous concerns. In almost all other situations, professionals will advise us to throw anonymous concerns in the trash. But if you get a sense that some of your members have concerns that they're not voicing, whether they're not participating in the process at all, or perhaps they are attending events but not sharing, it's important to find creative ways to help them engage, even if it's just one person. We want to hear their concerns. We want to be aware of and have constructive conversation about their concerns, and earlier in the process rather than later. So, we offer an opportunity to share their concerns anonymously. The index card exercise is this. During one of your events, offer each person an index card and a pencil. Using one side of the card, invite people to answer the question, if we voted to become reconciling, what would I be most excited about? Then, on the flip side of the same card, ask them to answer the question, if we voted to become reconciling, what would I fear the most? Collect the cards in a basket, mix them up, and then read each joy and each fear out loud. This unearths all the fears and gives us a chance to discuss them without any names being attached. Now, almost without exception, there are two fears that rise to the top. And since we know what they are, it gives your reconciling team and clergy an opportunity to prepare so that you can facilitate the discussion with grace. Most often, the top two fears are one, will become known as the gay church or a one issue church, and two, people we love but who disagree might leave. Again, we don't want to dismiss or demean any fears or concerns. We want to have meaningful conversations about them and perhaps not be surprised by a fear that gets shared in the last phases of your process. So, using this exercise earlier rather than later has proven to be very helpful. Let's take a minute and at least touch on the fear we hear most often, that we'll become known as the gay church. Y'all, if I'm completely honest, when I hear someone talk about that fear, about becoming known as the gay church, my whole heart wants to explode. What an honor that would be. Can you imagine, after decades of the UMC being known for judgment and fear and harm, To become known as the church where LGBTQ plus people know they're safe and affirmed would be amazing. And what a Jesus-y thing to do. Imagine how it might feel to be a person in the LGBTQ plus community. This is worth celebrating. Very often, reconciling churches are among the most diverse of congregations and engaged in the most diverse array of really meaningful ministries. No reconciling church that I'm aware of is anything close to being a gay only church or a single issue church. The truth is, someone in the community may indeed make a comment about a church being the gay church. While I personally would be very, very proud of that, I would also know it wasn't true and probably not give it very much of my energy.
A very important part of this process is discussing RMN's required foundational statement. A discussion guide is available to help you break down and better understand the importance of each phrase. Please schedule some time to study this together. If you choose, you can also personalize the statement by adding a sentence at the beginning or the end that describes your unique congregation or group. You may not, however, change the language of the foundational statement itself. Potential members and visitors, especially LGBTQ plus persons, will read this statement and know who you are, what you value, and then determine if they are indeed fully affirmed in your church or group. All reconciling congregations, communities, campus ministries, and regional groups will vote to affirm and adopt the foundational statement and become a reconciling ministry. Before we leave this topic, we want to share this. The opening sentence of RMN's foundational statement says, "We celebrate God's gift of diversity and value the wholeness made possible in community, equally shared and shepherded by all." It's important to name that as a reconciling congregation, your witness should include not only a willingness, but a joy in hosting and officiating same sex weddings in your sanctuary. And it should include not just a willingness, but excitement about the idea of having an LGBTQ plus clergy person appointed to serve as your senior pastor. This is a critical part of what it means to be equally shared and shepherded by all.
So, friends, I want you to take a deep breath and pay really close attention to this particular slide. It is critically important for larger groups and absolutely essential for congregations to take a straw poll before you take your final vote. When you take your final vote about whether to become a reconciling congregation, the result should not be a surprise. This is not like Election Day, where we wake up to find out who got elected. This is a vote where you know what your outcome is going to be, and the only way to be sure of that is to take a straw poll in advance. So once you've done sufficient study and dialogue and education, it's very important to provide people with the opportunity to vote on how they're feeling about the statement and becoming a reconciling ministry right now. There are two important questions that we want you to ask. The first question is, if we were to vote on adopting this reconciling statement today and affiliating with RMN, would you vote yes or no? And the second question is really important. If you would vote no, what are some things you want to learn more about, or some additional questions you may have? This gives folks an opportunity to express concerns they might have that maybe they haven't expressed before. And answers to those questions will also give you new resources and ideas for how to go back and add additional educational opportunities. We are seeking a minimum of 75% in the straw poll before moving forward, so that you can be sure that when you take your final vote, you will have sufficient support to pass your reconciling statement. I'm going to say it one more time. Please, friends, do not skip this step. It's absolutely essential. I could sit here and tell you some stories, some not very happy stories, about churches that skipped it and it did not go well for them. So please always make sure that you're scheduling a straw poll before your final vote.
Throughout your process, please encourage members of your group or your church to register as individual Reconciling United Methodists. You'll hear us shorten this to RUM. You can register on our website. It's quick and easy, and it creates a direct connection between you and RMN. Registered RUMs receive email updates from me and from our Director of Communications, all sharing information you won't want to miss. It's also important to discuss how your new Reconciling ministry will offer financial support to RMN. An initial offering of whatever amount is appropriate for your group or church is a required step when you become a reconciling ministry. It serves as part of your commitment to the larger movement. And we hope you will also create a routine of supporting RMN regularly, long term. Your church might decide to add an annual gift to RMN as a line item in your missions budget. Or one popular option is to take up a special offering once a year, often during a worship service designed to celebrate your reconciling anniversary, the anniversary of your vote. Just like your local church budget, knowing what to expect per month or per year helps RMN in our budget planning. Routine gifts are greatly appreciated, but all methods of giving are wonderful. Unlike United Methodist boards and agencies, RMN doesn't receive any funds from the United Methodist Church, and many foundations have changed their criteria for grants. So the need for financial support from reconciling family members is greater than it has been in the past. This shared work is critically important, and we hope you'll consider regular giving to be an important component of our partnership.
Now we come to the vote that you will take at the end of the reconciling process. Plan and schedule the vote with plenty of lead time. Advertise it widely. The vote is on one question only, friends. Will you adopt the foundational statement and affiliate with RMN as a reconciling ministry? Do not separate these two components on the ballot. We encourage you to use the sample ballot shared on our website. As to who can vote, that is your decision. Some churches limit the vote to professing members. Some churches choose to open the vote to all those who attend your church regularly and consider it their home church, even if they are not yet professing members. Also remember that confirmed youth can vote, so invite and encourage them to participate. When deciding when and how you hold the vote, consider what works best in your context. You can do it on any day and any time. You can do it on multiple dates if needed to allow for more participation. Some use ballots, and there are some instances when hands are publicly raised. Some allow mailing ballots or voting online. You can do all of these forms of voting. We require that you receive at least 75% of the total votes cast. For example, if you have 100 ballots or votes cast, you need 75 yes votes. We have created a document entitled Best Practices for Voting that includes all of this, plus many more helpful tips to prepare for and hold your vote. You can find it on our website.
Once you've taken your vote, there are 5 next steps. First, take a look at the online form and gather all the information you need. Secondly, decide who your 2 main lay contacts will be and get them to sign up as Reconciling United Methodists. Thirdly, complete the online form. This includes naming the 2 lay contacts from step 2. Fourthly, email Laura to let her know you've completed the form and send her a group photo. We love to see your smiling faces. The photo you send us will be part of the announcement and celebration on RMN's social media. And finally, make your first financial offering. This can be mailed to RMN, or you can donate by credit card through the RMN website.
Plan to celebrate publicly. This is a really good thing, and we hope you'll want to share the good news throughout your community. The goal is to put your welcome mat on the outside of the building, not just the inside. So here are a few things you might consider. If there are reconciling churches or groups in your district or conference, reach out to them to see how you might collaborate. Contact local groups already in existence in your area and ask how you might work together. Groups like PFLAG or GSA's, Gender and Sexuality Alliances, and your local Pride Committee are often great partnerships. Consider a press release in your local newspaper. Maybe send a celebratory article to your district or conference office. Just be creative and think outside the box. We've curated a list of ideas in a document called Next Steps for New Reconciling Ministries that will be helpful for these types of things and a lot more. You can find it on our website. After your celebration, start to plan ahead. Consider an annual worship service to celebrate your reconciling anniversary. This is a time to celebrate your ministry, maybe assess current needs, and renew your commitment to advocacy in the coming year. Share stories of your reconciling journey. This is special for members who participated, and it helps new members connect to the decision that took place before they joined you. When the time comes to start planning an anniversary worship service, be sure to check out the RMN website for worship resources.
Friends, we're coming to the end of this slide presentation. These are our email addresses and job titles. Laura will be your main contact for the reconciling process. If you have questions, please do feel free to reach out and she'll be happy to help you.
Thank you for watching and for your leadership in this process. We're grateful for your passion for LGBTQ plus people and justice and affirmation. Please don't hesitate to contact me if there is ever anything I can do to support you. Bye, y'all.